Have you ever felt so overwhelmed that you couldn't sleep peacefully? As if the moment you lay down, all your problems and anxieties rise to the surface, turning the night into an internal battle? What if I told you there's a simple secret, something many great spiritual masters recommend, that can completely transform your nighttime experience? Padre Pio, one of the greatest Catholic saints, taught that 3 essential words, when spoken before sleep, could open the door to a deeper connection with God. Believe it or not, these 3 phrases can change not only your sleep but also your spiritual state. And the best part? You don't need much time or any special skills to apply this teaching. Are you ready to discover what it is? Who hasn't laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling an inexplicable emptiness? The day passed, tasks were completed, but deep down, something still seems to be missing. This nighttime restlessness is more common than we realize. Many try to fill it with distractions, scrolling through their phones until their eyes get heavy, turning on the TV, or simply trying to ignore it. But the heart isn't fooled. This search is spiritual. And the most interesting thing, the Bible has spoken about this for centuries. How many times has your mind refused to shut down, replaying worries, fears, and regrets? It happens because the soul longs for something beyond the material. During the day, distractions mask this feeling, but at night, when everything quiets down, it becomes deafening. The truth is, this restlessness could be a calling, an invitation from God to meet Him. Christianity has always emphasized the importance of this moment. So what should we do with this feeling? The answer might be closer than you think. Many, when faced with this emptiness, turn to prayer, and not by coincidence. The simple act of connecting with God before sleep can transform how the mind and spirit experience the night. Padre Pio understood this better than most. He knew that certain words, when spoken with faith, could change everything. After all, if nighttime is such a prime moment for restlessness, why not turn it into a gateway to peace? Padre Pio deeply understood the spiritual life. He said that before going to sleep, 3 words had the power to transform the soul and strengthen faith: "My Jesus, mercy." Simple, yes. But true spiritual power lies in simplicity. These words aren't just a random phrase. They carry a deep cry, a sincere plea for love and redemption. The Gospel itself teaches that those who seek God's mercy will never be abandoned. Saying these words before bed isn't just a habit, it's an act of surrender. By speaking them, the soul acknowledges its dependence on Christ, releases the burdens accumulated throughout the day, and finds relief in God's promises. Padre Pio knew that the night is a spiritual battlefield, where worries can turn into torment and fears can amplify. He taught that by entrusting the last words of the day to Jesus, we place our minds and hearts into His hands for true rest. Many who have embraced this practice report an unexpected transformation: less anxiety, more peaceful dreams, a sense of protection. That's because when we call upon Jesus before sleep, we open a door for Him to work in our subconscious. Spirituality isn't something we live only during the day. It extends even into our moments of rest. But what if we could go even further and turn every night into a true moment of spiritual renewal? Nighttime prayer isn't just a routine, it's a refuge. In the silence of the night, when the world slows down and worries seem to grow louder, kneeling or simply closing your eyes in prayer can be the greatest act of faith. The Bible is filled with passages showing the power of prayer before rest. Even Jesus Himself would withdraw to pray at night. And if the Son of God saw importance in this, why wouldn't we? Praying before sleep not only calms the mind, but also protects the heart. Throughout the day, we absorb stress, fears, and uncertainties. If we don't surrender them to God before we sleep, they follow us into the night, turning dreams into nightmares and sleep into torment. Many testify that praying before bed lifts a weight off their shoulders. And the most incredible thing, the peace that fills the soul when talking to God is indescribable. If you don't believe it, try it tonight. Before closing your eyes, speak with Him. But how can this practice become natural? Start simple. Give thanks for the day, ask for protection through the night, and surrender your worries. Read a short passage from the Bible, meditate on its words, and end with a heartfelt prayer. Those who develop this habit discover a powerful secret. When we entrust God with our last thoughts of the day, we wake up lighter, renewed, and with a heart closer to Him. But there's something most people don't realize. The night isn't just a time for physical rest. It's also a spiritual battlefield that demands vigilance. Few people understand this, but sleep isn't just physical rest. It's also a moment of spiritual vulnerability. During the day, we're alert, filtering thoughts and decisions. But at night, our minds open to influences we don't always understand. The Bible shows us that God speaks through dreams, but it also warns of spiritual attacks that can occur during sleep. That's why so many saints and Christian leaders have emphasized the importance of spiritual protection before going to bed. How many times have people woken up feeling a heavy burden, disturbed by a dream, or with the sensation that they didn't truly rest, even after hours of sleep? This happens because the soul remains active, even when the body is at rest. The very essence of Christianity teaches that prayer before sleep is like armor, shielding us from negative influences and keeping our spirit aligned with God. Who hasn't heard stories of people waking up in the middle of the night feeling uneasy, only to find relief after praying? That's why saying a prayer of protection before bed isn't just a tradition, it's a necessity. Many turn to Psalm 91, which speaks of divine protection from both visible and invisible dangers. Others prefer to ask for the intercession of angels, just as Padre Pio did, entrusting his night to celestial guardians. The key is to remember, sleeping without prayer is like stepping into battle without armor. And if God provides the means for us to be protected, why wouldn't we use them? Gratitude is not just a beautiful feeling, it is a transformative force. The Bible teaches us that thanksgiving should not be occasional but a way of life. And at night, before sleep, is the perfect time for it. When a person chooses to focus on what was good instead of dwelling on what went wrong, they shift their perspective and strengthen their faith. Many don't realize it, but gratitude is an act of trust in God. After all, those who give thanks acknowledge His care, even when things seem unclear. Have you ever noticed how some people always seem joyful, no matter their circumstances? Their secret is gratitude. They train their hearts to see blessings instead of difficulties. The simple devotional practice of listing 3 things to be grateful for before bed may seem small, but its impact is immense. It not only strengthens one's spiritual life but also rewires the brain, reducing anxiety and improving sleep. A grateful heart rests better because it doesn't carry unnecessary burdens into the night. If you want to experience this, try it tonight. Before closing your eyes, thank God for 3 things that happened in your day. It could be something big or small, from a moment of protection to a smile you received. Over time, this practice creates a virtuous cycle. The more you give thanks, the more reasons you find to be thankful. And when gratitude becomes a habit, life changes. But there's something that can block this transformation, and if left unresolved, it can prevent peace from taking root. Forgiveness is one of the greatest spiritual challenges, yet also one of the greatest freedoms. The Bible teaches that forgiving is not an option but a necessity for those who desire true peace. The problem is that many confuse forgiveness with forgetting or condoning someone's wrongdoing. In reality, forgiveness means releasing the pain, surrendering it to God, and moving forward without carrying the weight of resentment. Before sleep, this act is even more powerful because it frees the heart from burdens that could turn the night into an emotional battlefield. Have you ever noticed how, when you're hurt, those thoughts tend to surface in the stillness of the night? That's because resentment traps the mind and steals peace. Those who go to bed holding on to grudges wake up feeling drained, anxious, and heavy-hearted. Jesus Himself taught that before presenting any offering to God, we must first forgive those who have wronged us. That's because unforgiveness doesn't just impact spiritual life, it affects mental and physical health as well. Sleeping in peace is a gift that only those who forgive can receive. If forgiveness is so powerful, how can we practice it? Before bed, try saying, "Lord, I place this hurt in your hands. I choose to forgive, even if my feelings still resist." This simple act is already a step toward freedom. Forgiveness doesn't happen all at once. It begins with a decision. And as this habit strengthens, the heart grows lighter. But there is another essential element for truly restorative rest. Trusting in God is one of the greatest challenges of the Christian life, especially when anxiety tries to take hold of the mind. During the day, it's easy to be distracted by tasks and responsibilities, but at night, when everything quiets down, thoughts begin to shout. This is when many get lost in worry, bills to pay, tough decisions, uncertainties about the future. Yet, time and again, the Bible teaches that trusting in the Lord is the key to true peace. Before sleep, surrendering everything into His hands is an act of faith that turns restless nights into restorative rest. Who hasn't spent hours tossing and turning in bed, tormented by thoughts that seem to have no solution? The truth is, most problems aren't solved in the middle of the night, but how we handle them can change everything. When someone learns to trust in God, they realize they don't need to have all the answers before they sleep. Instead of carrying their worries to bed, they lay them before the Lord. Simply praying, "Lord, I place this in your hands," may seem small, but it has a powerful effect. It eases the mind and prepares the heart for truly restful sleep. If trusting in God is so essential, how can we make it a habit? A great practice is reading scriptures about trust before bed. Verses like Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6, Philippians 4 verses 6 to 7, and Matthew 6 verses 25 to 34 serve as reminders that God cares for every detail. Keeping a spiritual journal to write down worries and surrender them to God can also be a great help. When trust becomes a way of life, anxiety loses its grip. And those who apply this principle experience real transformation. Nothing is more inspiring than real stories of change. Throughout history, countless people have experienced profound shifts in their lives by practicing prayer, gratitude, and forgiveness before bedtime. Padre Pio, for example, always emphasized the importance of surrendering everything to God before resting. Many believers who followed this teaching have shared how their nights became more peaceful and their lives more balanced. When faith is put into action, it bears fruit, and these testimonies are living proof of that. One striking example is a woman who battled insomnia and anxiety for years. Every night, her mind was trapped in worry, and exhaustion began to affect her health. After hearing about the practice of surrendering to God before bed, she decided to start a small ritual. She wrote down her concerns in a notebook and, in prayer, said, "Lord, I trust in you." Within days, she noticed a difference. Her sleep improved, and her mind felt lighter. Slowly, the peace she had longed for began to take root in her life. Another testimony comes from a young man who held on to resentment against a friend who had betrayed him. Every night was torment, replaying what had happened. One day, he decided to put forgiveness into practice, even though he didn't feel like it. Before bed, he would repeat, "I choose to forgive and move on in peace." Over time, his heart was freed, and he realized that the greatest beneficiary of forgiveness was himself. These stories show that small changes can transform lives. But what about those who insist on going to bed full of worries? Many people underestimate the impact that nighttime thoughts have on their spiritual and emotional well-being. The Bible teaches us that each day has enough trouble of its own, Matthew 6 verse 34, yet it's common to carry concerns to bed. The problem is, sleeping with a mind full of anxiety and resentment doesn't just steal peace, it also opens the door to even greater unrest. In the silence of the night, worries seem to grow, and what was once a small burden can become overwhelming. Have you ever noticed how a single negative thought before bed can even affect your dreams? That's because the mind continues to process emotions while we sleep. Many people who dwell on hurt and worry wake up exhausted, as if they never truly rested. Beyond that, a constant state of anxiety and unforgiveness affects not only one's spirituality but also physical health. Issues like insomnia, body aches, and even heart problems can be linked to this state of mind. If this cycle needs to be broken, then what should be done? The first step is to refuse to let worry be the last thing on your mind before bed. Creating a nightly devotional habit can transform the way you experience rest. Reading the Bible, listening to worship music, saying a sincere prayer of surrender, and declaring words of trust in God are simple yet powerful actions. Over time, sleep becomes a refuge instead of a prison. And when this turns into a habit, faith naturally grows stronger. The transformation we seek doesn't happen overnight, but through consistent practice. Spiritual growth and inner peace aren't things we gain only in times of crisis. They must be cultivated daily, especially before bed. Establishing a routine of prayer, gratitude, forgiveness, and surrender to God allows these principles to become part of who we are, not just things we do when we feel the need. When done consistently, the change is gradual, yet lasting. Imagine, for a moment, what it would be like if every night you set aside a few minutes to reflect on your day and hand over your concerns to God. Not just asking, but also thanking, forgiving, and trusting. If this became a habit, you would start to notice that your nights became more peaceful and your spiritual life deepened. The key to strengthening faith isn't found in occasional actions, but in the consistency of a daily commitment to God. So, what can you do to turn this into a habit? Start small. Maybe begin with a Bible verse before bed, a short prayer, or even a simple "Lord, I give this night to you." Over time, this practice will grow, and you'll begin to see the fruits of it. This habit doesn't just bring peace to the heart, it shapes a life of steady faith. And by doing so, life becomes more and more aligned with God's plans. Holding on to inner peace during life's difficulties is one of the greatest demonstrations of faith. In the world we live in, it's easy to be swept away by chaos, news, and the pressures of daily life. But as Christians, we are called to live differently, to trust that God is in control, even when circumstances seem against us. When we learn to surrender our worries and keep our trust in God, we experience a peace that surpasses all understanding, just as the Bible says. Imagine an internal storm, chaotic thoughts, unsettled emotions, and a restless heart. This is the natural state of many during times of hardship. But even in the midst of turmoil, we can choose peace. It's not about ignoring problems, but about trusting that God, in His wisdom and love, has a purpose for every situation. Prayer and surrender to God before bed, especially when everything feels out of control, allow that peace to take root in our hearts. This peace isn't dependent on circumstances. It comes from trust in God. So, how can we cultivate this peace even in the midst of difficulties? The key is to let go of anxiety and surrender every concern to God. Prayer, reading the Bible, and moments of reflection before bed are powerful ways to develop this peace. When this becomes a daily habit, even the hardest nights become moments of surrender, rest, and renewal. Because, as Jesus teaches us, the peace He gives is not like the world's peace. It is a peace that calms the heart and strengthens the soul. Dreams have always been a fascinating mystery. In the Bible, we see God communicating with His people through dreams. Joseph of Egypt interpreted prophetic dreams, Daniel received divine revelations, and even Joseph, the husband of Mary, was warned in a dream about the dangers surrounding Jesus. But does this still happen today? The answer is yes. God continues to use dreams to teach us, warn us, and strengthen us spiritually. However, the quality of our sleep and our spiritual life directly impact this experience. A restless heart can lead to turbulent dreams, while a mind surrendered to God can become receptive to His messages. Have you ever woken up feeling that a dream had a deeper meaning? Many times, God speaks, but our distracted minds fail to notice. That's why preparing our spirit before bed is so important. A sincere prayer, reading a passage from the Bible, and a moment of worship before lying down can transform the way dreams manifest. Additionally, asking God for discernment and protection before sleeping helps guard our minds against negative influences. It's no wonder that so many men and women of faith cultivate this habit. They know that God always has something to reveal. If God wants to communicate with us, are we paying attention? Keeping a journal by the bed to write down dreams as soon as we wake up can be a powerful practice for spiritual growth. Reflecting on dreams and seeking their meaning through Scripture can bring unexpected answers. God has never stopped speaking, it's we who often fail to listen. But when we make space for Him, we begin to see that our journey of faith can become even richer and deeper. Now that you know how Padre Pio can transform your nights with just 3 simple phrases, what will you do with this knowledge? Are you ready to take this step and apply this powerful teaching to your life? Imagine what it would be like if, every night, you connected with God in such a deep way, with complete trust and an inner peace that rises above every worry. How would that change your life? Don't wait any longer. Start this practice today and share with us how this experience has been for you. And if you want to keep learning and strengthening your faith, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll always be one step ahead on your spiritual journey. Let's walk this path of transformation together.